My name is Morrayna Gaskins. I'm a financial advisor. I work specifically with travel and staff nurses. I know a lot of people have different ideas of what what a financial advisor does. Just to give you a little bit of clarification on my role, it's not to really fix anything. It's really to meet you where you're at and to help you get to where you're trying to go. So I come in, whether you may have stuff already set up or you don't have anything at all. I'll take a look at what you already have in place just to make sure that it's doing what it needs to be doing. And so that way we can plan for anything that you're trying to accomplish. So you can look at me as like your accountability partner, and I'm the professional in the financial aspect. The things that I go over with my clients, whether it's retirement needs, any type of insurance needs, just maybe helping you save and budget better. If there's maybe children in the picture, planning for college expenses for them, that's really my role. And it's really easy for me to put things in place, but my biggest thing is to make sure that you understand why we are putting certain things in place. So that way, if someone wants to ask you, hey, why did you decide to do X, Y, Z? You're able to speak on it, not just, oh, Morrayna told me to do it, if that makes sense. Also, what I've noticed with working with nurses is that you guys, depending on if you're a staff nurse, you may receive benefits, but they're very cookie cutter benefits. They're not set up for your exact needs. So on paper, you may be the same age, making the same money, but your goals may be very different. What your associate may want to accomplish in 10 years, you may want to accomplish it in 5 years. Or just like your relationship with money growing up or where you are now can be very different. So the needs that you may have may not be in line with someone else's. So that's my role, to also make sure that we have something that's personalized to your exact needs. You guys did fill out a questionnaire. There was different topics on there that you guys said that you're interested in. Pretty much everyone clicked on everything. So I'm going to try to condense all this information in this hour that we have, and just go over all of it. Like I said, again, if you have any questions after this, please feel free to ask me anything, okay? Now, the biggest thing everyone wants to get involved with is investing, right? So, but there are things that you really need to consider before you take the steps to investing. The first thing that you want to take in consideration is going to be your time horizon. From the time that you decide that you want to start saving or investing the money, when is the next time that you plan on needing it? And people can have multiple time horizons. One time horizon could be, oh, I'm looking to retire in X amount of years. For some people, they plan on leaving the bedside and they may want to take on a new venture, whether that's starting another business or just doing something else completely that's out of the medical field. So we have to understand, all right, how many years from today are you planning to do that? The next thing that you want to take a look at is going to be your risk tolerance. That's just understanding your personality as an investor. Are you someone that's very aggressive? Are you someone that's maybe conservative? Or you have some people that like the middle field. So it's understanding that. What I use with my clients is called a risk tolerance questionnaire. It's really a personality test. So there's like 10 different questions on here, and then they're all multiple choice. There's no right or wrong answer. You are literally answering the questions based on how you feel. And then after that, we're able to see, all right, at this particular time in life, you may be someone that's moderate. So we know that any type of investments or anything that you want to get involved with has to be moderate. You can't handle anything that's too aggressive because then you're panicking at that point. And then, of course, like as time goes on, we will end up redoing it because as you get older, some people become a little bit more conservative because they may be nearing the age of retirement, so they can't take on that much risk. The next thing that we want to take in consideration is your budget. Understanding your cash flow, knowing what's coming in versus what's coming out. Some people have no idea at all what's left at the end of their budget. They just spend money. And then some people have a habit of trying to save after they already spent all the money, when really you should be doing it ahead of time and making it a habit. Also, what you want to take in consideration is going to be taxes. Depending on where you save and invest your money, the tax implication will be very different. Some accounts are going to be tax deferred, some are going to be taxable, and then some are tax free. So depending on the goal and objective will definitely determine where we decide that you place your money. So those are the major things before you do any type of investments that you should really take a look at. The one thing you don't want to do is just do it aimlessly and not have a goal in mind, because the purpose definitely matters. Put a purpose behind your money because it will make you more motivated to actually accomplish the goal. The next thing that we want to take in consideration is going to be the 3 sleeves of money. There's 3 sleeves of money that we all encounter throughout life. The first one is going to be your lifetime. The lifetime funnel for money, that's going to involve like your retirement accounts. So you have like your 401ks, your 403bs, 457s. Some people want to know like, hey, what's the difference between all of them? It's really a tax code. So depending on where you work will dictate which type of retirement account you will receive. But at the end of the day, they all do the same thing. They're all designed so that way when you turn 59 and a half, you can access them and do whatever you need with them. By all means, if you need to access the money at an earlier point in time, you can, but you do run into those tax implications by touching it early, and you have the penalties. Other things that fall underneath lifetime accounts are going to be life insurance, but it's only the permanent kind because that has cash value in it. Also, underneath your lifetime accounts, you have IRAs, whether they're traditionals or they're Roth accounts. That falls underneath there. Now, we call those lifetime accounts because it's generally 10 years or more before you decide that you want to do anything with the money in those accounts. The next funnel of money that we typically have are going to be your sometime accounts. Those are going to be your investments accounts like brokerage, TD Ameritrade, any of those trading platforms, because generally people hold on to those for about 2 to 5 years before you decide that you want to do anything with them, before you decide you want to do anything with the money in those accounts. Now, to go back to the lifetime accounts, the way that they grow are going to be tax deferred. So that means while the money's growing in the accounts, you're not paying taxes on it. You'll pay taxes on it at a later point in time. The sometime accounts, like the brokerage accounts, those are called taxable accounts. So you'll be paying taxes on the gains. The last funnel of money that we have we consider them anytime accounts. Those are going to be your checkings and your saving accounts because you can access those at any point in time. Those are the most liquid because if you need the money right now, you can go up to an ATM and then withdraw the money from. As far as the other ones, it's a little bit more of a timeline before you can actually access them. So that's why I was mentioning before, depending on where you save your money will really determine, well, your goals should really determine based on where you want to save your money. The last thing that you only want to have is going to be your checking and savings accounts, because that's a place where your money is not going to grow. If you need access to the money very quickly, it makes sense to have, but you definitely need to have other accounts so that way your money's working and growing for you. All right, so next what we're going to go into, I call it the circle of money. The circle of money is just a way of understanding the flow of your cash. Before you do any type of investments, you want to make sure you have a nest. That's going to be your emergency and your emergency and your savings account. That's in the event that anything was to come up, you have somewhere to tap into. Because when you have the goal of wanting to invest, the last thing that you want to do is have to tap into any investments that are designated for something else, because that kind of throws your plan off. You want to have like a significant amount, not a significant account, a significant amount, but it's really going to depend on your particular situation, how much you need in your nest. Because the difference could be someone that may own a home, their biggest expense of an emergency could be if something went wrong in the home and you need to replace a boiler, right? For someone that may live in an apartment complex, they don't have to worry about that. So their biggest emergency could be maybe something with the car, making sure that they have something to replace the car or any maintenance that they need. So your emergency savings account will really depend on what you deem as going to be an emergency. The rule of thumb is usually 3 to 6 months of expenses. But again, you have the travel nurses there, they pick up the contracts, and then their money's coming very frequently. So you're able to get to your nest a lot sooner than maybe the average person. I know a lot of people like to talk about stocks and mutual funds. What is the difference between those two? Stocks represents ownership in a company, right? So let's say Apple, for instance, you buy stock of Apple. If the company's doing well, you'll be doing well. If the company's having a hard time, your account will reflect the same. Why do people look at mutual funds? Mutual funds is like a collective of different companies in a particular fund. So if you're really unsure about maybe what companies that you should buy, you can get a mutual fund that may have a collection of everything that's in there. You want to think of maybe a stock as an individual store and a mutual fund as a mall. Why do people go to malls? Because it's easier to go into a mall and visit different stores in one particular location rather than having to drive to every single location. So that's why some people prefer a mutual fund. Also, the benefit of using mutual funds is that it balances out your risk. Like I mentioned before with Apple, if Apple's doing very well, quite naturally, your account will do well. But in a mutual fund, if you have a collection of all these different companies, if one particular company is doing poorly, then you won't really feel the downside because you have maybe all these other companies that are doing well in a particular fund. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is dollar cost averaging. Dollar cost averaging is a technique that's used in investing because it divides up the total amount invested over periodic periods. So let's say, for instance, oh, here's a good example, right? If you had a retirement account when the pandemic first started, a lot of people were worried about really any investment accounts that they had as far as the performance. Some people might have decreased the amount that they were contributing into their 401k or retirement accounts. But if you were so far from the age of looking to retire, what you really should have looked at, you should have looked at that particular moment as everything being on a discount. Because what you had to understand when the pandemic first happened, everything was down because everyone was in quarantine. We weren't able to go out and spend the money. So there wasn't anything necessarily wrong with the companies. It's just that there was no money being pumped into the economy. So the market reflected that. So rather than changing any allocation or changing maybe the amount that you're contributing, you should have stayed the course. Because what's happening is that you're buying everything at a discount. Think of this as if you went into the store and wanted to buy shoes, right? The shoes might have been like $100 for one pair. But at that point, let's say it went down to $50. So now you're able to buy two at the price of one. So that's the same thing that was going on in different retirement accounts. So if you, like I said, if you were so far from the age of or timeline of needing to utilize that money, then you should have stayed the course and still been contributing and not changing out any allocations. That's the concept of dollar cost averaging. Because eventually the market, as you see now, the market did go back up. And then if you stay the course, you would see that in your account doing so. Now, the biggest thing is risk management. Risk management is just protecting yourself and protecting your income. Now, you know that as being nurses, that your income relies on you. Whether you're walking through the hospitals or whatever it is, if you're in a situation where you're not able to work, then there's no income being put in. Things that to protect yourself will be life insurance, disability insurance. Those are the biggest things. Now, when it comes to life insurance, you have to understand there are benefits outside of life insurance, aside from the death benefit. So you have two different types of life insurance policies. You have term policies and you have permanent policies. The most common one that people know about is going to be term policies. The way that term policies work is they're generally going to last for maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and then they expire. Now, some people say, okay, since it's going to expire, what's the benefit behind having it? Term policies, they are expensive because they're going to expire at a certain particular time. Now, what you have to also understand about term policies, they always stress for you to get it as early as possible because that's when you tend to be your healthiest. So they always say, get it when you're young, get it when you're healthy. Because the benefit behind having it now is you can actually convert a term policy into a policy that does not expire. They'll base it on your actual health rating. The things that drive the cost of a life insurance policy is going to be the amount of coverage that you're looking for, also your age and your health. So if you are healthy, naturally your costs will be lower. Now, there's different situations why some people will have a term policy. Maybe they just purchased a home, so they want to make sure, God forbid anything was to happen to them, the house can be paid off. Now, term policy is very cut and dry. You set out a certain amount that you want, tells you how much it is per month, and that's typically it. When it comes to permanent policies, there are actually 3 different types of permanent policies. You tend to hear the comparison of whole life versus term, but it's actually an incorrect comparison, being that there's 3 different types. The 3 different types of permanent policies are going to be whole life policies, index policies, and variable policies. Depending on the person and the objective will dictate which type of policy works the best for you. Whole life policy is the one that's been around the longest, and that's the one that people typically know about. What you have to understand about whole life policies is that it provides cash value. Well, all permanent policies provide cash value, which is a savings account that's built inside the life insurance policy. You can withdraw that money to do literally whatever you want with it. You can use it to purchase a home. You can use it to fund college expenses for children. You can use it to start your retirement early. Some people use it for income supplement. So back to whole life policies, the cash value in them are going to grow at a guaranteed interest rate, which is about 4%. What you have to understand is the market performs anywhere between maybe 10 to 12. So in a whole life policy, it's guaranteeing you only 4%. It's usually ideal for people that are in retirement or very elderly in age, because they're at the point in their life where they cannot take on any risk. They need everything guaranteed, whether they're receiving a pension or anything, they can't take on any risk. That's the ideal person for a whole life policy. The other type of policy is index, or what they call IUL. The way that policy works is that it's based on, they call it it's based on different indices. So some of you might have heard of the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is an index that follows the top 500 companies. So you have Netflix, Google, Amazon, Tesla, all those major companies in that particular index, and then it matches the performance of that index. It also gives you different benefits, such as downside protection, which just means in the event that there's a downtime in the market, it absorbs some of the loss for you. But what you have to understand is, being that it will absorb some of the loss for you, it is like a give and take. So you may not make as much because it'll cap you at it'll cap you at your performance, since they're protecting on the downside. The last type of policy is called variable. That's the one that mirrors the market. So however the market's performing, that's how the account value grows well. So it's going to give you the most earning potential because it's mirroring the market. There's no caps on it. So in terms of cost, whole life will be the most expensive because it's guaranteeing you. Next would be the index, and last would be variable. So that's why I say, depending on the person, determines which type of life insurance policy is best for you. Oh, you should always review your policies, because at the time that you might have purchased it, all policies are based on the life expectancy of people. So if you purchased it a long time ago, at that particular time, they might have thought that, okay, people are only living to the age of 70, for instance, but now people are living a lot longer. So you may be paying too much for your policy, for the amount of coverage that you have. So always review them to make sure that it's doing what it needs to be doing. Disability insurance. Disability insurance is actually the most overlooked type of insurance because it's going to provide you a portion of lost income in the event that there's an accident or illness. You definitely need that in situations where you have to rely on yourself. So that's why it's also to make sure you have disability coverage. There's also long-term care. There's different types of ways that you can protect your income and also protect yourself. If you have an IRA, the new limits for this year is $6,000. Last year was $5,500, but I know depending on the income, you may not be able to actually contribute. So that way, that's also something. If you're in a position where you want to be able to save, that you're able to save more than $6,000 per year, or maybe you're capped out because of your income, you need to find somewhere else to be putting your money for the long term. What are the benefits of rolling my 401k into a Roth? Okay, so when you're rolling over a 401k, you have to understand that that's a traditional IRA. So the rules for that 401k is that you cannot touch it until you're 59 and a half. So when you roll it over, it will be treated as such. So you'll be rolling it over into another IRA. The benefits of doing that is when you leave your job and your 401k is just sitting there, it's not underneath your employer anymore, so no one's really monitoring it. So it's just sitting there. You want to have someone that's actually looking at the account, making sure that it's doing what it needs to be doing. And if any changes need to occur, then the changes are made. Don't think that the money is still growing because it's still technically invested. But again, there's no one actively managing the account. So when you roll it over, it will go over into another IRA, and then at least at that point, someone will be watching it. And if you want to continue to make contributions into it, you're able to do so. Do you need separate life insurance from the one you have with your job? Absolutely, you definitely should. So if your job is offering you one, definitely take it. But you want a life insurance policy that's customized to your exact needs. So that way, the death benefit, the purpose of it is there. When you usually get life insurance through a job, it's being offered to everyone. So it's very generic. It's like, okay, here's 100,000, that's it, you know? The life insurance that you have, you can have long-term care with it, premium waivers. So in the event maybe you get disabled or you become sick, you don't have to worry about paying the premiums on it. If you want it designated for to build cash value, it will be exactly to your tailored needs. So definitely always have life insurance separate from your job, because you leave your job, you may not have the plan anymore. But at least your permanent life insurance your policy that you have, you'll go with you forever. Well, the first thing that you want to do is the fact that you have income coming in, go over your budget. So list out all your expenses, compare that to the money that you have coming in, and then look at what that bottom line number is. From that number, if you already save a certain amount, deduct it from that, and then we can figure out, all right, from this money that you have saved, how much of this do you want to put towards any investments? And then you want to put a purpose behind anything that you plan on doing. Then from there, we can figure, all right, is it real estate? Is it just maybe you want to just have your money in the market? That way it's working for you. Rather than maybe purchasing actual real estate, they have what you call REITs, which is like you're buying real estate, but you don't have to actually have the tangible building, so to speak. You're invested in the building. So that's why it's important to know who are you as an investor and what can you actually handle? Because I'll know, because I'm the professional, the same way if someone's to come to actually any medical question, you'll have the best idea of what to do for them. And then what makes sense. Because Google is great, but Google can't answer everything, right? So that's the first thing that I would say. Go over your budget, understand that, get an idea of exactly what you want to accomplish. And then from there, all right, put your money behind it. Is investing the same as NFTs? Everyone loves NFTs. All right, so NFTs, the definition of it is a non-fungible token. So it's a digital asset. It's different than investing. On the spectrum of risk, NFTs, cryptocurrencies, that's on the aggressive side because you're banking on the economy switching over to cryptocurrency. So that's very different. So what you have to understand is there's trading, and then there's investing, and then there's like cryptocurrency, which is this whole other area. The difference between trading and investing, trading is like the day-to-day buying and selling of stocks. Investing is more of a long-term play. Cryptocurrency, the NFTs, like I mentioned, it's very aggressive, it's very speculative because it's based on people believing that cryptocurrency will be the new wave of currency. So going back to NFTs, it's digital. You're buying things that are digital, whether it's art, music, videos, the way that they work. So what's a good example? An example of an NFT is, let's say you have like this one of a kind, let's take Kobe Bryant, for instance, right? You have this one of a kind video of Kobe Bryant that has never been seen. That could essentially be an NFT because it's digital. It cannot be replicated because you own it, but you can sell it to somebody. So that's an example of an NFT. You see people now, they have like different art. The way that works is that it's only one of a kind. Everything's going to be one of a kind, and it cannot be duplicated or replicated or anything like that. You have the ownership, and then you can sell it. It's for a certain type of person. If you're looking to invest for like the long term, I wouldn't put all the money into NFTs. It's for certain people. Actually, I'll leave it at that. It's for certain people. I have clients that want to talk to me every month. That's just how they are. I have clients that are like, oh, only tell me when there's something wrong, I need to change something. There's clients that I make it a purpose to always touch base with my clients at the end of the year, because that's where you can really see the performance of how something performed. If you open up something today and then look at it in the next 2 months, you didn't give it enough time to really do anything. So you can look at it either on a semi-annual basis or on an annual basis. What you want to look at is that debt that you may have outstanding, at what interest rate is it growing at, right? If it's at a very high interest rate, then it makes sense to like tackle that and pay it down as much as possible. If it's at a very low interest rate, you're better off still paying it down, but you don't have to pay it off as quickly, because you could be putting your money towards investments that's going to be outperforming that interest rate of whatever the debt is growing at. So you may want to make your investing as a priority in that aspect versus in tackling down the debt at a quicker pace. For some people, it's just comfortability. Some people prefer not having any debt in their name if they want to tackle that down first. Then at that point, it's like, all right, then go ahead and do that. But definitely take a look at different things. Take a look at the interest rate on any debt outstanding. Saving, the biggest thing that you want to focus on with saving is making sure that you have that nest secured, the emergency account, before you decide to do anything. Because it's great that you may be paying down debt, but if you don't have any money to tap into in the event of emergency, then what good is that? You pay down some debt, but you don't have anything to take care of your own self. That's the first thing that you want to make sure you have that nest secured, and then everything else you could pick, okay, which is a priority at that point. And make a plan to pay it down. Look at what the debt is or the goal that you want to invest at, put a timestamp on it, and then break it down into smaller numbers. Put it into something that you can digest early. And that's the thing also when it comes to investing. People have a misconception that you need a large lump sum of money to invest. The biggest thing is about being consistent and being realistic about it, because eventually over time, it will add up. Get started as soon as possible. By putting it off, you're just going to be putting it off. If you start as early as possible, because like I said, when it comes to investing, the money grows over time. If you don't understand something, ask questions. That's the biggest thing I found talking to certain people, whether they might have spoken to like another financial advisor, somebody else in the finance space. Ask questions. If you don't understand, let somebody know that you don't understand. Do not be embarrassed. This is your money that you're relying on. Don't yes somebody to death. That's why that's my biggest thing going into finance is I want to speak to you in a way that you're able to understand, because I know how complicated finance can be. So that's why I make it a intentional purpose to break it down as if I'm talking to like my 8-year-old son. And he can tell you about investing because I make sure he's able to understand. Um, Research, definitely do your research before you go into anything. As I mentioned before, Google is great, but Google may not have all the answers. TikTok is great, but TikTok can't provide all the answers. If you need a professional, seek out a professional. I can answer any questions for you. Okay, IRA is an individual retirement account. That is a retirement account that you open on your own. So you have like 401ks and 403bs. Those are retirement accounts that are employer sponsored. So you can only get those through an employer. IRA is something that you open up on your own. It's going to work the same way as a 401k, but you just open it up on your own. You can buy different things in the IRA. You can buy stocks, you can buy mutual funds, you can buy ETFs, you can buy different investment pieces in the IRA. In the IUL, that's an index universal life insurance policy. So that's different than an IRA, because in IUL, you get the death benefit out of it. It's still invested, but it's a life insurance policy. And there's also like different other different things about it as far as contribution limits. An IRA, you can only contribute up to 6,000. In an IUL, there's no contribution limit, so you can put as much money as you want in there. How you access the money is different. The IRAs, you can access it at 59 and a half. There's no timeline as far as when you can access the money in the IUL. So it's very different. People use it for retirement though, but the benefits behind it are different. But everyone's income is generally different. So I could say save 60%, but then that's like all your money and you're not. And they may be unrealistic for you because outside of that, there are things that you want to do. And that's another thing that you have to think about when you look at your budget. People tend to think about the things that you get billed for, whether it's the rent, mortgage, phone bill, things like that. But if you know you may have gym memberships, you have membership to things that you forgot that's coming out of your paycheck. You sign up for something and you forgot it's coming out. Gas, you don't get a bill for gas, but everyone's paying it. You fill up your car every X amount of weeks or whatever it is. If you know that you're the type to maybe go out 2 or 3 times during the month, that's another expense. Maintenance, whether it's hair, nails, that's another expense. You don't get a bill for it, but you do it on a consistent basis. You may have children and then they're signed up for different curricular activities. That's another expense. So groceries, you don't get a bill for groceries, but you definitely need to eat. You buy that every month. So after that, you have to look at what your bottom line number is and then figure, all right, from this number, how much should I actually be saving per month? I generally tell people, all right, cut it in half because at least you know there's money aside there. But again, you have to look at what your bottom line number is. We'll definitely do this again. So that way, maybe it's a little bit more customized to what you guys actually want to talk about. I try to fit everything in from the poll to discuss with you guys. And then we'll try to do this again in the future. All right, well, have a great night, guys.